Hey everyone, you know what it is. Episode 2 of Michael Sonbeek Talks to People podcast. I'm joined today by local South Florida rapper and a good friend of mine, Ramos, from North Miami Beach. What's up, Jay?
What up, man? What up? You already know. You just said good friend Ramos, and then you call me my governmental name. So
I
I
got
know
I gotta
we
know
good there.
when you take off. Gotta let people know that I know you by
I
first
mean, that's
name.
my name. I'm Jay Ramos.
Yeah,
It is what it is. My artistic name is
uh,
not an alias. It's my actual last
yeah.
name. So
Just your last name. You got fancy and put an apostrophe right in the middle. You just try to get unique a little. So you just put out a new single, Killer Non Sequitur. It's on all streaming sites. So if people listening want to go check it out, you can. So what's your feeling towards the song compared to your other tapes that
yeah. Let's.
that I know that I've listened to?
Oh well, I mean, we took things to another level in terms of the production. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like we're really all around professional with the release and all that. So we're real confident in the technical side of things, everything being right, everything being tight as far as the mix master. Creatively, that goes without saying. We feel like we're doing our thing.
Mm-hmm. And then we don't know we don't know anything about the album yet. You're kind of keeping that a little bit on the down low. We don't know a name or a release date, but can you give us anything about what we can expect from it?
Yeah, it's very soon, man. Very soon for the 25 people who care about it right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming very, very, very soon because the single was meant to just be uh, it's meant to be a short, soft rollout because for us we just got to get it out there. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been doing good so far. I mean, I'm getting some activity. I'm getting a lot of thumbs up on things, but it'll be out it'll be out for sure in the next 10 days. I'll tell you that much.
Next 10
And
days.
yeah, and the album is called Proletariat Tropics.
There we go. Within the next 10 days, like I
Breaking
said,
news on Michael Zombie. Look at this, man. You're
it's the
breaking news already.
first time news has ever been broken on this podcast. 10 people are gonna care, but man, like I said, the song's called "Killer Non Sequitur" on all streaming sites, including SoundCloud. Um, so in your music, it's I feel like as someone who's your friend and listened to all your projects, you make it important to emphasize North Miami Beach and Miami in general. Is that something that's going to be more on this album too?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you listen to any artist that's coming up like organically, especially particularly in hip hop, we haven't. Well, I haven't seen the world yet. You know what I mean? So like,
Mm-hmm.
if you go back and listen to, let's say, a man that I affectionately call my dad, Lil Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
If I mean, when he was a kid, all he would say is Magnolia and New Orleans
Mm-hmm.
every two lines. The guys that are very, very, very and just I'm just using that as an example, right? But when you're a younger artist, I'm from North Miami Beach, and that's really all I know.
Mm-hmm.
Like all I know is 163rd Street. All I know is where I went to school. All I know is the area surrounding North Miami Beach and North Miami from 135th Street up to about 183rd, and a little bit west of that. So that's my world. So obviously, in my limited world, I talk about what I see in that world. And any young artist who hasn't yet been on a world tour or been city to city, or people who haven't had the privilege of traveling all over the place and having a lot of different sites is probably going to be proud and represent that area.
Yeah. So we're just gonna get. I'm gonna put you on the spot with some what could be some controversial stuff. So
Now, this is what people came to hear, bro. Now,
yeah.
hopefully, they're still listening after 5 minutes of uh of me boring them with stuff they don't care about. But if they did listen to the record, it would be nice to hear some feedback. But yeah, let's get it going with what people came for.
Okay. So hot takes and controversy. Um, since yourself, we've been seeing a lot on social media as cultural appropriation through about other artists like a Bruno Mars, and he has Hispanic backgrounds, and a lot of people feel he appropriates black culture with the way he makes music and his style of his music. and being a Hispanic hip hop artist, how does that make you feel? Do you also feel like, do you ever have the thought in your mind that maybe you are appropriating Black culture, or does that not something that goes
Well,
with
yeah.
you?
Well, first of all, I want to say that um, neither of us on this podcast right now identify as black. So
No, no, that's
that
yes. Let's
that we
let's
put that out as a
let's get that in.
disclaimer.
I'm a white male, uh, white
Yeah,
privileged male,
yeah,
and
right. And
and
yeah. So
U.S. Colombiano.
yeah. I'm a first just for some background. This conversation. It's important for people to know this. I'm a first generation Colombian American. Um, Obviously, as you would think, like most of us are, I am a biracial. I am mixed between European colonists, um, particularly from Germany, and my ancestry is also linked to Aboriginal natives, Amerindians in South America. So it's actually not very dissimilar to Bruno Mars because Bruno's father is Puerto Rican.
Mm-hmm.
Bruno's father is a mixed Puerto Rican, but he's a brown man. He may very well have some African in his DNA, but we don't know that. We can't respect. I know his mom is Filipino. Um, so yeah, I mean the issue with Bruno, which was why it was unique, because from what I saw, this blew up off of a Grapevine
Mm-hmm.
podcast, and as a person of color, a non-black identifying person of color,
Color, yeah.
who some people are asserting is appropriating black culture without um, either or just appropriating it, period, because he has given credit to it. So just to put that out there, yeah, that's where me and you are as far as what we identify as.
Mm-hmm. So, but do you ever think, like, putting yourself in Bruno Mars's shoes, or just identifying yourself like Bruno Mars? Do you ever stop and think about that side?
I think about it all the time. And one way I look at it is the people who are accusing him of cultural appropriation. We have to listen to them because they're coming from a place of pain,
Yeah.
a place
Yeah.
that we don't quite understand. So they're not wrong. We just have to
No.
hear their perspective and understand it. What the way I think about it, just me in particular, when I think about the genre of music that I make at this particular time, which is hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
Um, First of all, yeah, I mean, black people have been pioneers of damn near every genre of music. Um, but I like to think that coming from where I'm coming from, um, Latinos had a lot to do with that too. Hip
Mm-hmm.
hop was born out of the Bronx and born out of New York City, New York State, East Coast, by a ton of African Americans and Latino immigrants, particularly Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. But our fingerprints and footprints are all over hip hop that started in the 70s in terms of a lot of I personally believe that a lot of salsa influenced the beginnings of hip hop because a lot of my favorite salsa artists from the 70s, their writing game, um, their storytelling was phenomenal in itself. Like somebody like Ruben Blades, for example, just to throw a name out there, somebody like Willie Colon, who's a Puerto Rican guy. And
Mm-hmm.
these are biracial guys. These are people of color who, it's with Latinos, it's a little more of a nuanced thing because we're all kind of a mix. We're all kind of mixed in a pot. Some of us have some African in us, some of us don't. Some of us have Aboriginal, Native American in us. Some of us lean more toward one way. Some Latinos are actually they pretty much look as white as can be. So it's a little bit of a mix of things. But if you do your research on the history of hip hop, it's pretty well known that hip hop began with Latinos and blacks. Now, if you want to argue that blacks are the pioneers of music in general, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But if somebody were to tell me, like I believe firmly that my community had a lot to do with the creation of the genre itself. So I personally don't think that a Latino can be, in terms of the realm of hip hop, can be an appropriator. I'm not sure of that, but if somebody wanted to challenge me on that, I'd be all ears. Bruno Mars was somebody who makes pop music, and he's dabbled in all types of things from funk to soul to New Jack Swing, and he's really a versatile artist who's done a lot of different things. But his father is Puerto Rican, and I personally would argue that Puerto Ricans were extremely important in hip hop. But I think they were talking about other genres beyond hip hop,
Hmm.
which are definitely black genres, right? Whether it be, rock and roll or funk stuff that
Yeah.
Bruno Mars has done, or New Jack Swing. That stuff is definitely a black creation. So I can speak from a hip hop perspective. Bruno Mars is not a hip hop artist.
Yeah. But my, like, it would have been interesting also right now to have like a black hip hop artist on, so he could or she could give the their perspective on it, because I would love to like just sit down and listen to why they feel that way, because like I have questions like why do they, like, where is the line for cultural appropriation? Because you never hear anything about Justin Timberlake and Eminem or
You've heard
Logic.
some. I think you've heard some. I've heard some for Justin. I've heard some for Justin. Um, Eminem was the biggest superstar in the world at a time where social media and YouTube didn't exist. So I know he got some backlash for being the first big time white rapper. Justin Timberlake definitely got some.
But
He definitely. I mean,
I feel like it's just not as big. I mean, you get when a lot of people talk Justin Timberlake, and I'm talking like big time music people, you get the name Michael Jackson thrown around. And, Michael Jackson arguably is the most famous,
yeah, he invented modern
uh,
pop. Yeah.
yeah, and he's the most famous probably the most famous black artist of all time. And, I feel it's a little irresponsible or strange to throw his name in, like, if we want to say
Well,
Bruno's.
oh yeah, I will get to the grain of this though. I will say this. I mean, I know I just mentioned that as a Latino, I feel I feel entitled about our place in hip hop,
Mhm.
but I don't feel entitled about our place in society. So like I'm not gonna deny that me and Bruno Mars, if just being a person of color, non-black person of color, we most definitely will benefit from whether it be racial ambiguity or the benefits of being having lighter skin in a world where colorism is a big thing, even amongst minority communities. So the idea that Bruno Mars has benefited from his racial ambiguity to me is a fact.
Mhm.
The idea that minorities of lighter skin or non-black minorities benefit um, from not being quite as scorned as the black community, I think that's a fact. So I mean, I will acknowledge the privilege that comes with Bruno Mars's position because he doesn't identify as black, and maybe sometimes other black artists of his caliber, or especially those of darker skin, may not get the same opportunity. So I will say that. I mean, I will say that if that's something that you're trying to get at, because I think that is where the pain comes from. Is the pain comes from he's making black music. He's not black, and other black artists may not have the same opportunities as him, and that hurts. And I think that's the perspective, if I'm not mistaken. That's I can't probably express it
And that's kind of,
as well as them, but yeah.
like, let me put in my side as a white male who's a big hip hop head. I kind of, you know I hear rappers like Eminem, Logic, it's something that starts to wonder to me, like a big Eminem change his skin color, is he big, you know things like that. So do you think with certain white hip hop artists, it's culture appropriation with a mix of white privilege?
Well, first of all, Logic, identifies as a biracial man, although he benefits from his appearance as a white man, I would say.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, the lighter our skin is and the closer we are to whiteness because of the construction of whiteness as the norm in America, well, we absolutely benefit from that, right? Like, so
Hmm.
Eminem benefits the utmost.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm not sure he'd be as big a star if he wasn't
good,
white. Although
good.
he's a phenomenal MC, he's still one of the great MCs.
He's phenomenal MC, but
But
I feel
would he be the highest selling ever? I'm not. I don't think so. I'm not sure.
and would he get away with what he used to say in his early days of the Marshall Mathers LP, Slim Shady LP, parts
It's
of the
yeah.
Eminem show? Like, would he get away with what he said?
Well, I mean, he said a lot of bad things, but I mean, those elements are in hip hop anyway. You know what I mean in terms of what you're. I'm assuming you're thinking about homophobia and whatever violence or whatever you're talking about.
Homophobia, politically too. I mean,
Yeah,
he
no,
got,
I mean, yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
people are gonna, yeah. I mean, he's white, of course. He has a
mhm,
pass. He has a pass and a path that is easier. And I
yeah.
think Eminem, to his credit, acknowledges that. So,
No, yeah. I mean, he touches on uh white privilege and revival. Even though, let's not get into that. Let's not get into Eminem's revival. But but every time that song comes on, it's called Untouchable. I don't know. You've heard it maybe once. I remember we've once discussed it. And it seems like a white privilege theme song in a way, even though it's attacking white privilege.
yeah, that was I respect Eminem's approach because it didn't come off as he wasn't defensive. He was Eminem acknowledges. I think he acknowledges his privilege and like any.
He acknowledges it, but like this is just something that like I said, I wish we could have, because me and you both can't have the answers to this. But like I said, I wish we would have a black artist on.
No, we can have one on next time or something.
Yeah, like
Uh,
because
uh,
there's parts of that song he's putting himself in in a way in a black man's shoes or a black woman's shoes, and I don't know. I feel like that made me feel uncomfortable in a way.
why so?
Like, even though, okay, like we know his background, we know his story. He came up in that culture, and but I still don't think it's appropriate in a way to. Let me try to pull up some lyrics that I'm talking about, and it's just an approach I wouldn't have. Don't think it was responsible to take, and I'm honestly surprised it didn't get um more looked into. Like, here where he literally puts himself in the view of a black person. It's black boy, we ain't gonna lie to you. Black boy, we don't like the sight of you. Pull up on the side of you, roll down, window roll down profile, then we wonder why we see this side of you. I mean, what he's saying, it's coming from the good intentions and um, you know, coming out with his privilege. He's identifying it, but in a way of putting himself in a black kid, black woman, black man's shoes, it still comes off as a little weird to me.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way.
You get what I'm saying?
No, well, the thing is, I think the hip hop community trusts M. I think we
Trust
trust
Eminem.
I think we trust that his heart is in the right place because um he's always kind of I think he's always paid homage to the great hip hop artists before him and his relationships that he has in the industry and I think it's honest. I mean, it's very but
No, I'm not. That's not what I'm debating. I'm not debating whether it's honest. I believe it's honest, but I would like to know a black artists, or just not even black artists, a black person's perspective on that? Like, would they share the same opinion of, yeah, it was in good taste, but a little uncomfortable because he, no matter what, he still doesn't know what
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like.
No, I understand that. And that's the tough like terrain we gotta dance on. Like anytime we have these discussions and there's layers to it amongst
Mm-hmm.
different cultures and races and religions. And you know, for Eminem, he's speaking up on it, man, in his way. He did the Trump freestyle too.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean it may be a little clumsy now that I think about it. I mean, from your perspective, I can understand why you see it that way. But when I heard it, the first thing that came to, maybe it's because of my biases to Eminem as it is, but when I heard it, I wasn't thinking about that. I was more so like, it's good to hear a white artist with a big platform try. You know
Try to
what I mean?
speak
Now,
out on
now
it.
if it was clumsy, and like you said, I'd like to hear, because honestly, that album kind of came and went, and we didn't get to hear a lot of commentary on it. I think people, for the most part, didn't love the execution, so they didn't sit there and harp on the message and have it. It wasn't a cultural discussion, but I would like to hear the black perspective on if
Yeah,
I know for a fact I saw Royce the 5'9" in an interview on Rap Radar a few weeks ago, and that some of that came up, not that particular song, um, but Royce the 5'9", who's a close friend of his, is like very very firm on Eminem's place as understanding race relations and his heart being as pure as it can be. So you know,
mm-hmm.
I don't really, what you're saying is interesting, but like you said, it's not really something me and you can really get to say is right or wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it opens up. I just wanna, for anyone that's listening, and they're of the right to have an opinion on it. You know, to I would love to engage, or not get engaged in a conversation. Just literally just sit down and listen to what they would say about it.
Can I ask you a question though? Because we're on this conversation, and I've seen this come up too.
Mm-hmm.
You're a white hip hop fan, which
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of you in America. Matter of fact, I think since most people, hip hop's a popular genre, and obviously, um, there's plenty of white people are fans of hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
You listen to a ton of hip hop, and the conversation has come up because of some viral videos. As far as what do you think about saying racial slurs that come up in hip hop? Mostly, I think, uh, words amongst minority communities that are used as terms of endearment, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. No.
But
Yeah.
that words that originated as not good words.
Mm-hmm.
And you being at a show, and what do you think about white people saying those words if they're just saying the lyrics at a show, or if they're just reciting the bars as fans and there's no malintent? Like, what do you think about that? Like, do you do that? Like, do you ever say that word when you're?
I when I'm listening to hip hop in my car, or in general, I'll be honest, I've never been, so I can't speak of what I would do at a concert because I've never been to a black hip hop concert. Ironically, the only two concerts I've ever been to that involved hip hop was Eminem and Vanilla Ice. So, um,
The credibility is like through the roof right now.
so I can't say what I would do at a show because both of those people obviously don't use that word. But when I'm driving in my car, um, no, I don't. I mean, I don't like clean music. I don't like downloading clean music, and so I'll just, if I'm rapping along, just skip over the word, pause. I just
So
pause for a second.
you're telling me that never, not once, have you not said the word saying like rapping to the song in privacy? Like you telling me you skipped over it every single time?
When I've matured, yes.
Okay. So what do you think about? Do you think does that means you think it's wrong
I
to?
do. I do think it's wrong. I don't think anybody should say it. And I've had this conversation before. I have friends that are not black, and not only will they say it in hip hop, or they'll just say it in general. Um, I don't think it's right, but I don't. Again, I can't speak for anybody, but I don't. I think a good amount of times it's not intentional. I don't think a lot of the times when a white person does say the word when rapping along to a hip hop song, just I'm talking when I'm saying this, I'm talking strictly when rapping along to a hip hop song. I feel like it's not meant to be like a racist thing, but no, I don't think you should say it. And when I listen um to hip hop, I'll just skip over the word. And I think we've talked about this before, and me and you both being big Lupe Fiasco fans. He's even gotten me to. I'll say it now, but he's even gotten me to skip over the word bitch when rapping along to songs. You know, because I felt when I first listened to Hurts Me Soul. I never really thought about it like that. When I know we're getting a little bit off topic with race, but sex,
He did it. He made and then he made Bad Bitch like 4 or 5 years
bitch
later.
bad, bitch bad,
Obviously, yeah,
bitch bad.
Bitch Bad, which obviously had a there's a method behind that. But I see what
But
you're saying now.
but it was like an overall same message though.
Of course, yeah.
That
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
we're talking about Lupe Fiasco here, so yeah.
yeah. So yeah, as a white a white male who comes from privilege, no, I won't. Since I've matured, I will not say the N word while rapping it wrong or use the word bitch when it's referred to a woman. So what about you as a Hispanic male?
Well, as far as the word bitch, I avoid it. I avoid it. Um, I like you said when referring to a female, I think, man, I think on the album I say it like twice, not referring to a female. I think I say something something. You know what I mean? Just like
Yeah,
not in
like
not in that context. I think I say it once or twice. It's rare for me. It's just rare for me in everyday conversation. It's just not really a word that I
yeah,
use a lot. I
that
don't
word
really.
I've been trying to take out of my vocab as much as
Yeah,
possible.
I just don't use the word that much, man. So that
Like
word is already not a hard one
yeah,
to really navigate. I do say some slurs in terms of slurs in my community, like um, I might say spick a few times.
mhm.
Just being full disclosure here. As far as the N word, I avoid that as well completely. I avoid that completely in my album because I recognize that although other Latino artists present and past use it with great frequency, and I understand that. To be honest, in my neighborhood, I've never been checked for that.
Mhm.
I've always been given a pass, whether that's right or wrong. I've always been given that pass. But in my music,
This is
I understand the context of America and the context of everything, so I avoid it.
this is something that's always been curious to me. I bring it up because you said you get a pass. You know, we both are from South Florida. Uh, I I don't know the demographics. I'm speaking a little bit irresponsibly, but I'm sure North Miami Beach might be a little bit more black than where I come from.
I mean, that's a pretty safe bet. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but where I come from a place that has a lot of Hispanics and good amount of black people, but probably a heavy balance between the majority being Hispanic and white. And just growing up in schools, I've seen white kids and Hispanic kids, get passes. I've never in person never seen really someone my age get checked for that. And I wonder, maybe is it a South Florida thing with, you know, being so diverse down here?
I'm not sure about that situation where I've never I've had a few white friends. I mean, I grew up in a very minority majority community,
Uh-huh.
so it's not like a choice for me. Like I grew up in a mostly Haitian neighborhood, a lot of Latinos, a lot of blacks. I went to a big public school that was pretty mixed, and there's actually a good faction of a Jewish community in North Miami Beach in one little area as well. So I had a lot of interaction with them in high school, but my high school is mostly minorities.
Hmm.
So I've never been around a white person who said that in a regular. Never. So I really don't have a litmus on that. I wouldn't be happy with that, and I'm not even black.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
it's
I'm
just.
so other people of color, just my lived experience, right? This doesn't make it right.
Hmm.
Myself and other whether it be Latinos or people of color or Asians and stuff like that. Uh, I've never seen just amongst I've never seen a person of color checked for saying that word from my teenage years up to now. But I've never been around white people that say that comfortably. It could be because I haven't grew up around a lot of white people, or it
Hmm.
could be it could be because I'm a little sheltered. But I've never had to interact with that.
Hmm. You know, um, so I had the numbers here. Yeah, North Miami Beach, 43%, according to areavibes.com. North Miami Beach is 43% African American compared to Pembroke Pines. It's 20%.
Yeah, there's a pretty big
Yeah, it's a
North Miami
pretty
Beach has
big.
has a Jewish community that's pretty large in some areas. So I think that
Hmm.
that goes a long way. And obviously there's plenty of Latinos. So, but yeah,
Yes.
43%. I mean that's almost half. So
Hmm.
yeah.
So I mean, it's like it's interesting to me because you know, for people that don't know, I'm a few years younger. I'm more closer removed from high school than Jay is. Um, you old piece of shit. Um, so I mean, and people that are listening to this that went to my high school, because I hope they support me. Um, they can they'll agree with me that white people where we come from use the word a lot. I
I
I
think
don't
it's
have.
a different conversation though, because I would say if your white friends came and just they came with me to 163rd Street and walked up between 15th and 8th Ave, I wonder if they would say it then. I think maybe there's a comfort level. Obviously, for somebody to be white and saying that word, they must be pretty comfortable with where their
Mhm.
what their surroundings are. Um, because I'm not quite sure they would say it where I'm from. Unless they were made comfortable,
Mhm.
which happens too, because I do know a lot of people who don't really care about that one way or another. So, but I haven't had to interact with that like you
Yeah.
have. But it makes me wonder about their surroundings, and if they're around other people that look like them and talk like them, then they understand uh that the lashing out for it would be minimal.
Let me pull up something. Maybe this will give you more perspective. We talked about so my high school is 45% or was when I graduated. 45% Hispanic, 26% black, 19% white. So amongst the three uh main, you know, backgrounds, white is was the lowest percentage. Do you think that would has an effect?
Well, I mean, you said 25% of it was black, so keep in mind that Hispanics and Latinos is a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. Um, a lot of and that's the thing in the Latino community is there's a lot of confusion right now. I mean, the U.S. Census changes all the time. I mean, sometimes they say that um they take it off and they just say if you're white you're white, or sometimes they'll say the census in the past I would have had to fill out a box that said
White.
white Latino or white non-Latino.
Yeah.
or sometimes they'll say other, and quite frankly, most of the time I put other because
Hmm.
it's just a tough, and I'm sure I know a lot of Latinos who look at it that way. So first generation Latinos in this country are we're going we our identity, we're here in America. We haven't been in America for a long time. We come from countries that were colonized and destabilized. Um, so a lot of us are still trying to figure out where our place is and what we are in the first place. Some you know, and there's a lot of speaking back to hip hop, there's a lot of rappers who are Hispanic, who are white faced Hispanic and Latino, who are pretty much like you pretty much whatever African influence was in them is very low or minimal,
Hmm.
that freely say the N word and do not get checked in the
Right.
mass media or amongst their fans. So
Like a Takeshi 6 9.
yeah, that's one example. I mean, Lil Pump is a local
Lil
guy
Pump. Yeah, Lil Pump.
that does that. Back in the day, speaking of like, if you want to go back, another local guy was Pitbull. Pitbull used to say it, and it's people don't know that, but Pitbull was
Really?
originally Pitbull was originally a street rapper.
Hmm.
Pitbull was originally, yeah, um, was originally a street rapper, and originally was a gangster rapper. Was really he was cut from that cloth,
Hmm.
and he would use the N word as a Cuban, as a light skinned Cuban who I'm not sure about his background, but I mean he's clearly not, he's clearly a mix just like most of us. But it's so with the Hispanic thing, man. Like,
If that came back, if that surfaced, you know how that is nowadays. We'll find things from people from a
but
long
if I
time
mean,
ago.
but I mean, you just mentioned like one of the hottest artists in the game, right? You mentioned Takashi 6ix9ine.
Uh huh.
I mean, if people aren't falling over writing think pieces criticizing him while he has 6 hits on Billboard, and while he has a tremendous following, then I don't know why they would go down. And if you want to go back, even back before Pitbull, like Fat Joe is the most accomplished
Hmm.
uh is the most accomplished Latino rapper I think ever. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but because of Big Pun's unfortunate death,
Yeah.
um, I think, and he says it actively with no pushback. So it's a tricky thing, man. It's a tricky thing. So when you ask me like, oh, uh, that
I don't know.
what you just said about your high school, I'm thinking about it like, okay, there's a lot of Hispanics in that school, but how do those Hispanics identify? Like, and do they come from the culture? Do they come from a hip hop culture, or are they just kind of figuring things out, or do they come from more of a middle upper class Hispanic area?
I
Because
mean, it's Pembroke Pines, so I mean,
yeah, it's
it's yeah, it's. I mean, I don't want to speak for the whole for all of them, but I mean, they would come from middle class. I would say live the ones that live in Pembroke Pines come from a middle to upper middle class.
right. So we're talking about communities. Um, yeah, I mean it's
Like going back to the um not saying it while listening to music. Uh, an interesting perspective is my girlfriend who's Dominican, and she's. I mean, she's not dark, but she's a shade, maybe a shade darker than you. If you want to know what Jay looks like, at this is Ramos on Twitter. Um, and she also does the same thing. I've never heard her say the word when
well,
listening to
Megan.
music.
No, well, Megan is essentially black. So I mean, she's. I mean, to me, and that's the
You so
tricky.
you as a another as an another Hispanic from Colombia, you would view Megan, my girlfriend, as a black Hispanic.
I mean, she's clearly multiracial, right? And like if you study the history of the Dominican Republic, and that ethnic group, is a unique ethnic group, and just looking at her, um, I think that if you go off, if I mean, I would think if she identified that way, I wouldn't see a problem with that. I mean, I think there's clearly some
it's funny because, when that topic always gets brought up, I started to, I never thought about it with her. And then, when you hear it, I would start listening and observing it. And I've never heard her even slip it at all.
Well,
So,
let's also understand this though, that amongst communities of color, like we have to deal with, right, there's white racism, right, and that's what we talk about in America all the time
mhm,
because that was kind of created here in America. But amongst communities of color, and this could be a trickle down from white racism, but the colorism we put ourselves through is a whole nother layer, right? So like, um I know a lot of people that are mixed with black who prefer not to identify as black. That goes back to colonial ideology and self-hatred that's been instilled in people for hundreds of years. Uh, so I wouldn't be surprised if a Latino person who looked like they had some some black in their bloodline, I wouldn't be surprised if they denied their blackness because that's a to be honest, in the Latino community, that is a common thing. There's also a common thing where people deny their indigenous bloodline.
mhm.
Um, they it's a source of shame to some people because they are washed by, by what colonization did to our cultures, respective cultures. So as far as she goes, she may, I don't know her personally. I don't know where she'd be coming from, but I do know that plenty of people who look like her, who I think, I mean, I don't know her direct bloodline, but it's clearly she clearly looks like she has that in her, and she wouldn't be the first person that I would meet that denies that.
It's something that I've never straight up asked her what she identifies herself with. I just never felt that was my place to ask. So, I mean, it's interesting. This has all been interesting conversation to me. So we can go back, you know, as we almost get near to wrapping it up. Go back to what we first started talking about with music, and we were talking about the white and Hispanic rappers. But we've also seen Drake be called out for culture appropriation. Um, I'll be the first to admit I'm not the biggest Drake fan. Um, so when I talk, I can't um, name the song on the top of my head. I'm slipping my mind right now, but I remember it was on his last album where he kind of gets into these accents that a lot of people criticized. And, they said Jay-Z did it differently. Jay-Z wanted to get into that vibe and he brought on, appropriate artists. So, I mean, what do you
Yeah,
feel?
well, that's something that I think that some well, I was reading something about a particular Native American tribe
And I
and
believe the Jay-Z song is Bam, right? Off
right, right, right,
444.
right, right, right. And
Yeah.
he brought in a Marley for that.
Marley, yeah.
So I was reading something in regards to cultural appropriation of Native Americans, and there was a particular blogger, and it's slipping my mind.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm gonna look at it real quick. But the gist of what was said was, some things are restricted and some things are unrestricted, and they were talking about headdresses.
Hmm.
Um, and the name of the blog is quite long and it's difficult to break down. But it was about headdresses, and it was about the fact that some of them have a very, very significant meaning,
Hmm.
and that you can only wear that if you earned it, and there is a certain ritual in that group to where that is a very important thing. And then there's also unrestricted things, right? There's like
Hmm.
some dresses and some wristbands that this native tribe has no problem at all if you wear. In fact, they enjoy that. They look at that as like, hey, you're benefiting us, and you're wearing clothes like us, and that benefits our business and our exposure. But don't ever wear our headdress. Don't
Hmm.
ever. So I mean that's a delicate line that you have to talk to each particular community about. So I don't know if when Drake makes music like this particular country sound or this particular genre sound, I'm not sure it's offending people on that deep a level, or if it's just offending people on the on a less of a on a less serious level. Drake's a black man. I don't really necessarily get too upset when black people or people of color in general. Like, I mean, if you really want to break it down, you know, blacks created most of everything in music. So it's just like the Drake thing. If you want to argue that it's lazy artistically, you can argue that, but the appropriation and the like, I don't really see Drake as doing anything wrong there. Just my opinion on it. I mean, I don't really see it. It's not my place to be offended, but I don't even see it as something that is deeply causing an issue.
Yeah, I get that.
And I say the artistic part because I know that you've said that before, and you're not the biggest Drake guy.
Hmm.
And some people will be like, well, you know, it's just a pop song or whatever. Um, some people view it that way. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, Drake puts out hit after hit.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
he's making
you're
Drake.
you're lobbying up the fun part. I mean, the whole conversation's been
No, I'm
fun,
just
but
saying that Drake is putting out these hits and making so much money, man. So I'll never.
oh no, you
I
can't
can't
hate
really
the
I'm not
you
gonna
can no, you
criticize
can't
that.
you
I'm
can't
not
hate
gonna
that.
criticize Drake.
But from I'm getting my, got to get the hot take out. Got to get at least one of these. You know, I've told you that I view Drake. I'm just gonna go out use the hot take snatch line, snatch word of overrated. You know, but I just I feel like he doesn't grow. He hasn't grown much.
Yeah. I feel like I've heard that before. I've heard you say like, oh, it's lazy or not growing and things like that.
Mm.
I mean, I think Drake is real talented. I want to see what he does on the next album.
Oh,
Maybe that's
I'm not denying his talent. I mean,
yeah. Maybe on the next album, we'll see. We'll see how things go. Just me personally, um, I respect his ability, and I'm not ready to say overrated or anything like that. We'll see how the next album is. You know what I mean? We'll go from there. Um,
damn, so
I and
you're not
as
gonna give
far
me
as
something to snatch.
well, yeah, no, because it's like I'm not sure if it's laziness or anything wrong yet because I haven't seen him necessarily called out on it in a way that where he's actually hurting a group of people or stopping. I just
Mhm.
think that he's making he gets inspired and as like any artist does. From what I understand, he gives proper credit. I'm not sure. Like you would have to hear from the people whose music he's quote unquote appropriating from and see if they're really offended and what their reasons are.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean we hit the time button. We've run out of time here. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for coming on, and come on anytime.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me, bro.
And don't forget, um, Killer Non Sequitur on all streams. And what did you say the name of the album was again?
Proletariat Tropics.
It'll be out in within the next 10 days. So that's Ramos. Thank you for listening to Michael Sonbeek Talks People episode 2, and we'll see you next time.
These are